order the Murray City Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, November 4th, 2021. It is 6:31 p.m. Present this evening are Commissioners Jake Pearson, Jeremy Lowry, Ned Hacker, Lisa Malkiewicz, Travis Ney, and I am Maren Patterson, the chair. Excused is Sue Wilson tonight. From staff, we have Jared Hall and Zachary Smallwood and Bryant Farnsworth with us. We will start with our business items. We have our approval of the minutes from the October 7th meeting. Have all the commissioners had an opportunity to review the minutes? Yes. Were there any changes or corrections? No. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the commission meeting minutes from October 7th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Can I second that?
Perfect. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Then we'll move on to conflict of interest. Do any of the commissioners have a conflict of interest with the agenda items tonight?
No.
No. Neither do I. And agenda item number 3, our approval of findings of facts and conclusions for Kareem Auto. Has everyone had a chance to review those findings of fact?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve them?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the finding of fact for Kareem Auto conditional use permit as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on then to our agenda item number 4, final subdivision approval for the Murray Heights PUD. Is the applicant with us? Great. We'll have our presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Chair. As you said, this is a final subdivision approval for 5448 South, 700 West, the Murray Heights subdivision. It's located just south of 5400 South and a little bit west of 7th West. It's in the RM15 zone, which allows up to 12 units per acre as a base density. Couple photos of the site as it exists today. So this is the final subdivision plat. There are 31 units located or proposed for this PUD. The Planning Commission granted a planned unit development and conditional use permit and preliminary subdivision approval back in September. And this is just moving forward on to final subdivision approval. So nothing has really changed here. Back when we had our initial, during the preliminary, there was a request to remove some of the parking spaces right here. That's been updated on the plans. Otherwise, there's not much to this. The unit types has stayed the same. A mix of 2 with a roof balcony and 3 with a roof balcony, located sporadically throughout the site. I kind of included the floor plans again just for you guys to see. So really, that we're recommending that the Planning Commission grant final subdivision approval. We did talk briefly in the staff review meeting that about the fencing. I thought it was in the actual conditional use permit that was issued, but it doesn't look like it was there. It is in the minutes. I do know that. So we will get that corrected. But if the commission feels like they would need to put that back into these conditions, we're more than happy to do that. So any questions from staff at this point? Okay.
Great. If we could have the applicant. Thanks for being with us.
Evening, can you hear me? Evening, Planning Commission. Brian Prince with Ivory Development. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for the applicant? I'm sure you've had a chance to review the conditions for final subdivision approval.
Yes.
Yeah. and you'll be able to comply with all of those.
Yes, I did. I've talked to a few of the neighbors I've gotten to know through some of the on-site meetings we had this summer. And Rochelle White, who is a neighbor that's kind of been the representative for the neighborhood next door to the south, called me this week with a question about the fencing. Because at the PUD and preliminary approval, the decision was made it could be at 6 or up to 8 feet. Just so you know, and I told Rochelle, our plan is to do an 8-foot fence, privacy fence, along that south side, adjacent to the existing subdivision.
Great.
Was she the? May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Was she the only neighbor that you talked to about that fencing?
Yes.
Or maybe the better question is, what does the rest of the neighborhood? Do you know what the rest of the neighborhood would like?
Rochelle led me to believe that she talked to her neighbors, those that I had met with on site a few times this summer, and everybody was of the consensus they wanted an 8-foot, an 8-foot structure, and that's what we plan to do.
And what kind of fence would you put in? A vinyl fence or a
No,
block
it'll
fence?
likely be a precast concrete material, or a if it was vinyl, it would be a wood grain vinyl. But it's likely it's solid surface, like a split face block or a precast concrete material. And on those, with certain designs, they obviously come in a standard 6-foot. You can have an extra panel up top to get to that 8-foot.
Yeah. And we talked about in the staff meeting that the way we had added it as a condition, it said up to, in case there were neighbors that didn't all want an 8-foot fence. But it sounds like that you've talked to them and that's what they want. So.
And the one thing that this is, I guess, more for Jared and Zach, on the design, one kind of design consideration is the plan is to place that wall right up against that private lane. Because if you don't and you kind of have it off, it's a kind of a maintenance nightmare because weeds grow up and you don't want to have a mow strip. And so that'll be right up against kind of a monolithic design right up against the top back of that curb. So maybe that's a little too into the weeds, but yeah, that is the plan.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Yeah, with your monument sign, what type of materials will you be using on the monument sign?
That's a great question. This is random, but I'm going to throw it as an example. Has anybody seen the across from Salt Lake County buildings on State Street, the jewelry? O.C. Tanner. Thank you, Jared. Have you seen that monument? They've got it's like a precast concrete that has the lap siding panel look, and they built the grade around it so it kind of rises up. We saw that and really liked that element. So it'll be obviously a smaller scale than that. That O.C. Tanner is a good example of what we envision there. We did include the lighting in the design. It's a low wattage light that will light up, won't impact the neighbors behind it. It's intended to give it kind of a consistent look with the architecture we will build in there, and is kind of bulletproof. We want it to last forever.
Awesome.
So.
Great.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I will now open the meeting for public comment regarding this item. If anyone would like to speak to this agenda item, they can do so. Seeing none, I will close the public comment period and bring back for further discussion or a motion.
Just to humor me, can we go back to the site plan? No, that's just a
Didn't-
staff recommendation. That one's great. That's great. Okay, so we're talking about with the fencing, just so I'm 100% clear, on the south side of the property, it will go directly up against the private alley so that there won't be any lawn or anything there.
That is correct. So on the south side, it would be right up against the south property line. One thing that staff is aware of that this doesn't really show accurately is the neighborhood on that south side, they've put fencing in as they've gone over the years, and so
It's
it's not-
staggered and
It kind of it's a hodgepodge deal, and yeah, you see that there, but there's not any encroachment that's significant. I mean, max it's like 8 to 12 inches, and so there may be some places where it veers a little bit, as far as right up against that private lane, but we'll keep as close as we can.
no,
So it'll run from 7th back off of a line of sight of 7th West all the way to the back and wrap around the corner. And then we are still contemplating the fencing material along the north side in between the UDOT right of way. We envision like a wrought iron fence to maintain those views. Rochelle thinks that the neighbor thinks that the noise will be problematic, and encourage that we do a solid surface for sound attenuation, and we're looking at that. But that is the fencing plan for now. And then along 7th West will be open,
Yeah.
because as you can see in the plan, we've got units and walk pedestrian connectivity to 7th West.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the conditions? And then, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. One more slide forward. I have to read it.
It's not updating. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll steal one.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that Planning Commission grant final subdivision approval to the Murray Heights PUD subdivision on the property address 5448 South 700 West, subject to conditions 1 through 7, with the addition of a condition number 8 that says that they shall install fencing along the south side of the project.
I have a motion by Commissioner Ney to grant a final subdivision approval for the Murray Heights PUD subdivision at the property address 5448 South 7th West with the 7 conditions and the addition of the 8th condition. Is there any discussion on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Lowry. We can take a vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. So that is approved. And good luck. Good luck with your project. All right, we'll move on to our agenda item number 5, some training for the Planning Commission.
I'm just going to get out of Bryant's way and let him begin. Is it updating?
Weren't sure in what order would be going. At least I wasn't. So, annually, our office typically gives a Open and Public Meeting Training Act. So the act in state law requires that training be given once a year to each public body, and that includes not just city councils, but any board or commission that the city has. So it's something that we get to do quite a bit. And I know that I've given to this group at least a few times an open and public meetings training. And GL has given that prior to me. I know Commissioner Lowry and Pearson, I think this would probably be your first training, but I thought I'd do it a little different this time. Instead of hearing me drone on, I thought we'd see how well the training has been absorbed in the past. And I think that you
So we have a pass.
the
Is what
new
you're saying.
commissioner, you can chime in.
Can we close the door then?
I'm sorry.
Should we close the door just for privacy? I'm sorry.
We're a team, right? Individual.
It's not individual. I had considered making this a big game and teams, but I thought that might be a little unprofessional.
Next year.
Okay, next year. But you both might know some of the the reasons or some of these anyway, just from being around and a citizen. So
Wait, do we need to be citizens to serve on this?
you got me.
Sorry, I'll stop now.
So although our office gives the training, who's really responsible to ensure that a public body gets the open and public meetings training each year?
Is it the chair of the public body?
It is the chair of the public
Whoa.
body.
Oh.
So
Glad you're
it
here.
is-
We're ahead.
So if we had a year where Jared wasn't on top of getting us involved, it'd be the chair's job to get after him or to contact our office to get this training done. So
And what's the jail sentence for not having that done? Oh,
Oh,
okay.
sad.
Well, at this point.
A lot of
I'm in.
pressure.
What anymore?
we could jump right to the enforcement if that's what is what's a penalty for a violation of the act?
I want to know.
Class B misdemeanor.
It is a Class B misdemeanor to
I do
knowingly
not have an answer.
or intentionally violate or aid or abet in the violation of the Open and Public Meetings Act.
Okay.
So simple negligence, forgetting to do it, forgetting to have the training or forgetting something, without proving that it's knowing and intentional, it probably would not rise to the level of a Class B misdemeanor, but that's probably the worst it could be. There are also other penalties. So if there were a violation, the action that is taken, a decision or a vote, could be voided by a court, meaning you'd get to look at all that again and go through the proper process, and the city could be they could rule that the city gets to pay attorney's fees for the person that brings a claim against the city. So those are a few of the consequences for not following the act.
And what are the consequences of a Class B?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So a Class B misdemeanor could mean up to 6 months in jail or a fine of, I want to say, around $1,000 plus surcharges or both. So that's,
And as little as a $25 fine.
yeah. It runs the gamut. I mean, when I used to prosecute, we have to tell everybody what the potential penalties are, and often for the more, the smaller offenses, you're not looking at thousands of dollars. Others you are. So, what is the reason that we have an Open and Public Meeting Act? What's the public policy? Give you a little help.
The people's business should be transparent.
I think you're
Exactly.
I can read.
Yeah, so we should be able to see what our government's doing, and that is at all levels, not just the city council, but I would say here with the planning and zoning, it's one of the more consequential boards and commissions. You all make decisions that are very that affect people with regards to their rights, their property, and with the community at large. So it's not inconsequential, but the public also has a right to see how business is done in other boards, the arts board, the history board, the Parks and Rec board, what recommendations they're making to the mayor as far as what direction they'd like to go. And just to see how the business is done. It's their right, and why they have these sunshine laws for both open meetings and for open records. What is a meeting?
A gathering of the elected or appointed, a quorum of the elected or appointed members of the body.
Okay. Anything else?
Probably has to allow for public comment or an opportunity for the public to air their grievances.
Right.
I think that, I mean, it could be in multiple formats. I mean, it could be in person, telephone, electronic means. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've experienced probably at least a year, if not more, of some of those type of meetings where they were through electronic format. They could be telephonic, depending on the situation. But it's not simply a gathering. It's got to be with the intent to do the public's business. So if you're discussing issues within your jurisdiction, if you're meeting to hear the public comment, to present to the public an item, or hear their comments. If you are all together, more a quorum, and you're at a ribbon cutting, is that a public meeting?
No.
Only if we're discussing something that would be on our agenda.
Yeah. So chance meetings and social gatherings are not technically meetings under the Act, but if it devolves into discussing things that may come before you, then that's where you run the risk of messing with the requirements of the Act. All right. Doing pretty well here. Probably don't need to ask, but what's a quorum?
Simple majority.
Yeah, majority.
Right.
Yeah.
Not even majority.
Well, I think it is a simple majority, unless it's spelled out in the bylaws of the organization that it's something other than that.
Right. The default is the simple majority of all the members of the board or commission. And I don't know that there's too many in the city level that require more than that.
So we're not a quorum. We don't have a quorum. We can't get a business if there's only 3
Correct.
for us.
You need 4. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that?
Of
In that? In the case we have, let's say 4 commissioners show up and we're voting on something. If one of those, so 4 vote yes, 1 votes no, does that pass or no? Yes. So is it a majority of the quorum that is
That's
present? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. It's on a vote like that.
And in the case of a tie where we would have an even number, then it does not pass, and can it be revoted at that point?
Don't remember the bylaws, but essentially, yeah, a tie vote would equal
A nothing.
passing, right?
A nothing. So it's not a no or a yes. Is that correct?
Motion.
Right.
The motion fails. Okay, I see. So nothing happened. The motion didn't happen, so you could make another motion.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
or can you choose to not make another motion in that scenario?
Well,
I know the city council can just let things die on the vine. Do we? Well, I don't think they should. I don't think they should either, but yeah.
they have to act on it. You'd want to make
Right. You would. I mean,
want to come back with a different motion.
you would like to come back with another
Even
with
if it
another
was
motion.
continuing,
To continue.
Yeah. I mean that's
you would continue that item.
yeah, and I think that's the difficult thing about this board is that or commission is that you have to act on the agenda items before you, and you could, after a tie vote or a motion failing, could just let it sit there, but that would have the effect of it failing, and so
Pestering you as staff.
right.
City council notwithstanding, we won't react.
Right, because there's consequences of something, their rights being violated if something just doesn't get voted on, right? So,
many of you didn't endure a Tim Tingy lecture, but he got us to vote on motions.
Yeah.
So I have a question, Brent,
Yes.
kind of related to this. So for our commission, 4 is a quorum.
Correct.
So what about when 3 of us go out for lunch or dinner with or without our spouses and talk business? It's not a quorum. However, I think there's a lot of frowning upon that. And or not even being together physically versus phone call or even extended email and text messaging.
Right. So you're right. Technically, 3 would not be a quorum. If you're going out and discussing something that should be coming here, that can cause definite problems. I mean, even if you were to say, well, that doesn't violate the letter of the law, it certainly violates the spirit of the law. Other states have passed more explicit regulations regarding this. In fact, just last year, California included this in the materials. They went so far as their state assembly to prohibit board members or council members from commenting or even hitting likes on other commissioners' social media pages, because they felt it was a violation of the principle that you deliberate in public. You deliberate the public's business in public. If you have 3 of you meeting for lunch, talking about things that are going to come before you or that could feasibly come before you, you run a risk of doing that. And we see issues with that just because of due process. You have the due process of the applicants that may come before you, having you deliberate in public and having the information then. You also have members of the public who may want to comment, and may have serious problems if there's a number, even if it's not a quorum, discussing an issue amongst themselves in private. And so that's something that we would discourage. 3 getting together for a social, for a lunch, that's great. But once the business talk comes into it, we think that's where there are difficulties.
Can we clarify that just a little bit though? Because deliberating an issue coming up,
Right.
that's the concern. But sitting down together and talking about what we think about density, that's not a specific project. That's a difference, right? If there's 2 of us or 3 of us, still not a quorum, stay in the parking lot expressing our thoughts on density, not a project. Is it
Or-
still a concern?
Or even what if it's a project that was in the past? So what if it's not one that is going to, so it's the one from today. We go to lunch, 2 of you guys that want to hang out, we talk about how cool that we go past the OC Tanner sign for example. That'll look really cool in the Murray in that Ivory development. Did we just do something wrong doing that?
No. So that has come before you. There's been a final decision on it, and I don't see a problem with discussing that at all.
I think
The density gets really gray because I think generally, that typically shouldn't be a problem, but like I said, some states have come down with explicit rules. Utah has not, and it's a really gray area. I mean, when do you cross that line of we're talking about something within our jurisdiction that could affect how we treat applications coming before us? I wish I could give you a bright line answer. Too much of what we say often is it depends, but
Can I ask I'm going to ask a specific scenario then. Let's say that I'm reading the minute, or I'm reading what's going to come before us, and I want to know Travis's opinion. I call him on the phone and ask it. Is that inappropriate? I understand that's probably not legally, because we're not a quorum. I think legally we could do that, but do you feel it's inappropriate for us to do that?
we would discourage it. I don't know that I could say affirmatively that's way inappropriate. I think that's where laws in other states are trending, is that getting other members' opinions before a meeting is not deliberating in public, and even though it's not a quorum. So, like, I couldn't say, Jake, that's totally inappropriate for you to do that.
Sure.
I could say we would discourage it probably. We would like everything as formal as possible. It's a hard position where we can't say it's against the law, you can't do it. It's obviously unethical. It's not obviously unethical. It's not preferred, and I don't think the public would. I think they may have difficulty if wind comes of lots of those types of conversations going on. And
So it sounds like what you're saying, if I can summarize in my words, it sounds like you're saying is that anything that's going to come in front of this body, any comments, any questions should be here on record, and that should and then once the decision's made and it's a final decision, at that point, if we want to talk to other commissioners about it, sounds good.
yeah, essentially, I think it's a good summary.
And it's my understanding that that's why you wouldn't want us like the Bullion, for example. The neighborhood was getting together and meeting with the developer and expressing a lot of their opinions and comments and things before. That's not an appropriate place for us to go, because you're getting a whole bunch of information that the rest of the commission wouldn't be getting and discussing at the same time, right? Like that wouldn't be a...
Right. That's
I
why
think
we
would
would have
be-
discouraged that. Again, that's one of those where we couldn't say,
But even if we had
No,
three
that was
people, if
wrong
you
for you
had
to
4
go.
people that went to a neighborhood meeting like that, right? Like someone could say you had a quorum there, you got public comment, right?
Deliberating.
So
Right, you
it
could.
gets, like, to your point, it gets very gray.
right, yeah.
So the error on the...
Tell me if I'm wrong here, though. The problem isn't the information that we're gathering at that place, correct? I mean, I get information you guys
Right.
don't get because I research stuff in my packet, right? It's not necessarily I have more information than other commissioners do.
Right.
It's just that it's the fact that we're all in one place, and then it could be discussed at the
Right.
Bullion project, right?
It's that, yeah, it's, I believe the main focus of it is the deliberation, the sharing of ideas, or the positions amongst the commission itself, not necessarily that you're getting information from the public. I mean, somebody from the public could email, call you, and
So then
And I
their
believe we
opinion,
had
you would-
2 council members at that meeting.
the Bullion.
Council's so different, though, I think, than
Council.
this.
it's a little. They're just the
I
one.
believe
I'm
there was 2.
unfamiliar with who was all there,
I
but
believe.
So but are you
As far
saying?
as I'm aware, because I didn't go, there was 2.
But what you're saying, if we sat in that Bullion meeting and didn't deliberate or participate, just listened, is that different, or is that still splitting hairs? I didn't go. I'm just...
yeah. I mean, I think it would be a little different, but it could. It's very gray, and
maybe
it's not clear cut right now. And
maybe delineate why it would be different for a city council member versus us, where they're an elected official and we're appointed, and kind of the different roles. And maybe we're supposed to be viewed as we're impartial. Is that fair?
in some with some issues, yeah. I mean, I think in some with some items, you're kind of like a quasi judicial board. You make final decisions on certain agenda items. Others you make strong recommendations, and I think that's and you brought up also that the council's elected. They kind of are the voice of the people, and they go out and mingle, see what their constituents want, share ideas with them. But even then, if they were, there were to be 2, 3, 4 of them at a public meeting and they start deliberating, discussing the issue, that could be a violation of the act. It's again, I think the main telegraphing positions, discussing positions amongst the council or the commission or the board itself, not necessarily that you're getting ideas from the public or hearing something from them. I think that's where the main issue is with that.
I think there's a lot of gray areas. The last open house that I think we had was at the
That's 4800 South property.
and I know almost certainly there were at least 4 of us there, maybe 4 or 5 of us, and we didn't huddle together in the corner and decide something. However, I'm relatively certain we all talked to each other at some point in time, and the benefits or the drawbacks of a particular project or aspect of a project. And I look at that, and was I there as a planning commissioner? I didn't sign into the meeting as a planning commissioner. I signed in as a resident, and have an opinion about a particular project that, in this case, it was in my neighborhood too, but I don't know.
Was
Lots
that a
of
public-
lots of
was that
gray
a public-
areas is what
Was
I'm
that a
saying.
public meeting though?
It
was
kind of met
noticed,
some of
right?
those guidelines of,
Good point. Good point.
whereas a neighborhood meeting that they're meeting on a project, not everyone, it's not publicly advertised that.
I would assume that we could say, we could sort of co-opt the neighborhood, like that neighborhood meeting that happened in Mona.
Mm-hmm.
If we had felt like it was a good idea, we could have said, look, if you guys want to have a neighborhood meeting, let's have we'll schedule a public meeting with the planning commission that's not the application's not an application, it's just a work meeting.
Advertised.
Do that. We felt like it was better
Noticed.
to clear that because it was a zone change, not a project.
Let me go back to something you said just a moment ago.
Sure.
That the council represents the people. I do not represent the people of District 4. Is that a fair statement? I represent myself as a citizen of the city.
Huh.
You stumped him.
You wouldn't represent them in the same way. I mean, you're put on a board, and many of is there any at large?
There are at
There are-
large.
There's 2 at large.
2 at large, and then you are picked from districts, but right, you don't represent that particular council district. You're put on the board by the mayor. Council approves that, but you're put on the board as board members to deliberate, and as a citizen board member, not necessarily that you're the representative and whatever the population in that district wants, that's how you have to vote. You're using your own judgment to, and council doesn't do that either, but you're put on the board by the mayor to use your judgment to think, well, what is the best land use action for the city with whatever item comes up. So yeah, I'd say it's a little bit different than the council, where they're elected, they use their own judgment too. They do whatever they feel is best for the city, but they're directly responsible to the voters ultimately, who say, wow, we really love what they've done, and keep them in, or get upset and they vote them out. And you sort of serve at the pleasure of the mayor. And so
So my question is then, are we representing the mayor? Are we representing the city? Or are we representing what we think is best for the citizens of the city?
Well, yeah,
that's an interesting.
we're representing the legal ordinances of the
Yeah,
city,
exactly.
right?
You're a body with at large.
Right.
In lots of cities, everybody in the planning commission is at large. We have that geographic requirement. 2 of you are at large, the rest of you are from different districts. And when we had this discussion before, this years ago, we talked about removing that council district area requirement, just making all of them large.
And the council voted.
Council decided they wanted to keep you in districts because and their thinking wasn't that you would represent the people of that district, represent the same way to the council. That their thinking was that forced the geographic diversity because the city is diverse. And so if you came from those areas, you would be representing the people of that area, but you would have an understanding of that area that the rest of the commission might lack, and so you would bring that to the table as a commission. So it's to force some knowledge of the individual areas of the city, or the more individual areas.
But it's not, my district doesn't want more density, and so I'm voting against these projects that are coming into where I live.
You have an understanding of that area,
Right.
So if you needed to, you could try to
Hear the concerns of, right.
So when you're representing, you say representing people in Murray, representing Murray writ large, all of it, as a body.
Well-
But bringing to that representation your unique knowledge of your area that you live in and your experiences there.
But I would maybe, I'm curious everyone's opinion on this, but I don't view myself as a representative. What I view, and in fact, I hate with a capital H, the recommendations to the city council, where because I really do hate it because I was not elected by the public. I was appointed by the mayor, which means that in my view, I haven't earned the right to. Well, I'm just happy the city council it does those. I'd be more comfortable if we didn't even touch them. But I view our role as an umpire in terms of we're calling balls and strikes. Does this project meet the ordinances? Does it meet the zoning requirements? So I view myself a bit of a dispassionate administrator almost in terms of, does this meet this definition of the land use? And it's a much broader group that's going to decide a master plan. I mean, look, if I was king for a day, I'd do a lot of things differently. But I'm not, and so that's kind of what I view my role is more of a. My job is to ensure that the are the ordinances being met. There's room to talk about those different things, but I don't view myself as a representative at all, actually.
But
Am I wrong?
Jeremy, aren't we every meeting deciding that we need a wall for the citizens of the development we just looked at, or last meeting where we voted on recommending a change, which I know you don't like that,
hate
but that's
those
what
ones.
we did.
Yeah.
And you voted yes or no, and I voted yes or no for whatever reason, but we weren't looking at, a set of criteria of whether we should do the zone change or not, or if we should put a wall and require it.
Yeah, I mean, the point is your point is inherently we bring our own tastes and preferences and bias, maybe.
That's
And
fair.
I don't dispute that I have my own tastes and preferences and strong biases.
I'm just saying I agree with the administration part. I think most of what we do is that, right? We're making sure that
Which I'm a lot more comfortable
everything's checked off the list.
with. Right.
But a lot of what we do, especially when we start telling people, hey, we want you to build a wall, we want you to put more trees or whatever crazy things we've done or not done,
So
those aren't checklists, right?
right.
Yeah.
So
Or
I'll-
changing land uses.
So
Exactly,
I'll
yeah.
touch on this a little bit. So you guys play a dual role.
Yep.
So yes, you are appointed by the mayor. However, the city council is the one that by state law creates the planning commission. So you are doing the city council's business as it applies to land use applications. So even though you're not approving like zone changes and stuff, that can only be done by the legislative body. However, administrative actions can be done by the land use authority, which is dictated by the city council. So at least in my opinion, you guys are working partly as representatives of the council and partly by the mayor as well. At least that's how I see it.
I'm going to start asking for a lot more trees then.
There you go. Ask for trees.
I'm so glad you framed it that way, Zach, because that's what when you were saying that you don't like that we forward things onto the city council, we are looking at all these individual things very closely, and then they're looking at they've asked us to do this, right? And then they're looking at our recommendation. So there is a good purpose that we are recommending one way or another to the city councilors. It's not, why did we do that? They could have just looked at it. We are the land use. We're looking at all those things. They're looking at everything.
But when
And
it
so
comes
we're
to-
sending their
We're into the
recommendations.
details is what you're saying.
Yeah, when it comes to like conditional use permits, that's balls and strikes. They either met the letter of the law or,
Or they didn't.
and that's it. But the other portion, yeah.
I think too, if it was just a checklist, then we would probably just have staff do that, and should never come before us. If there's no opinion, then, I mean, if it was just, is this 1 + 1 = 2? Yes, check it off. Then why have a commission?
There's always some opinion, but sometimes we're also restricted to where our opinion can be interjected into the, for example,
I agree.
the, what are they calling it now? The Kmart parking lot. I don't like the density there. I don't like it when we voted for it. I wish it was smaller. It's going to directly affect me. But I voted in favor for it because I can't change what I don't like and do like in the zoning. It met the requirements for the zoning in that area, right? And I think it's a good area to do the things they're doing there. I just didn't like the density.
That village multi 10, 12.
Well, that's why the village happened,
acre.
because of Kmart. Then we came back and said, what should we do? And we got other areas of mixed use.
I'm with you on that one, but we can talk about it because we're in session. So,
But I say that because I voted in favor for it. The record shows I was in favor for it, but I'm not completely. But I feel like that's where it's gray. I don't know.
I think too, a lot of time, I mean, I know we're getting off topic, but I think a lot of times I voted yes on something, even though I didn't agree with it, because, I might think that, this is a property owner that owns this land and they should be able to do with it, even though I might not want them to do a car lot or whatever it is.
But it's their right as a property owner.
They're a property owner. Unless we have a valid reason to tell them no, we probably should let them do it.
That's being respectful of the ordinance and people around me, even though I don't like the idea. It's done well, done respectfully, done following the ordinance.
So I mean, this brings up an interesting question, and I mean, and like we're humans, right? So, I'm interested in everybody's opinion on density. I'm interested in everyone's. I'm interested in everyone's opinion. We obviously are all on this commission because we have some whether we're planning people by profession or is interested in it. We're obviously interested in these topics. So I mean, Ned, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I never have asked you because I didn't know how I could, but how can we what's the appropriate way for me to say, Jake, what's your opinion on density? Lisa, what's your opinion on density? How do I do that without, a Class B misdemeanor charge?
I can take that.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
I think the appropriate way for you to do that would be to tell us as a commission that you want to have scheduled for the commission to discuss
A conversation.
density. That you want to have a discussion about density in an upcoming meeting and for us to prepare or whatever. And we'll ask you for a few more details, but that's how you do it so that we can all talk about it together.
So not on
And
Facebook.
Jake,
Not on Facebook. Yeah, please avoid that. An agenda. Yeah, we put on an agenda. Planning commission discussion
And
of
notice
density.
and
Yeah.
so and
Absolutely.
Jared, would that be a pre-meeting discussion?
We could do it pre-meeting or post-meeting. I wouldn't do it in the middle of a bunch of discussion about commission business like subdivisions.
I
and
wish we would have done
conditional
it
uses,
last week.
but we could schedule it the way we scheduled training tonight. We just schedule a discussion item, density, at the end of the meeting. As long as the public has a chance to know, I think, as long as the public knows that we're going to be talking about density, not with respect to a certain project or a certain area of the city or whatever, but density generally, that's cool. We just have to schedule it. Other than that, you're stuck with just those conversations in the parking lot after that aren't too gray. And you can always call us and say casually, "Hey, Jared, what does so-and-so think about density?" And I won't tell you because that would be inappropriate. But you can ask.
What would that look like?
I'll talk to you about density all day.
So
anytime you
when
want.
we schedule that on the agenda to discuss density, would it be an open public meeting?
It would be a public. It would be here.
It'd be a public meeting, but it
We
would
don't have
not
to
be a
open it.
public hearing.
You
they wouldn't have to
You
comment.
don't have to say
No,
comments
you
on it.
don't.
You can just talk
You
about it.
just do it like a night like tonight when no one's going to be here. And
Slow agenda night. We
But
could
nights
put
like
that.
this don't happen very often.
That's true. So
But they could, because we've canceled meetings before, but they could be kept on the schedule and have something like this.
Brian, because it kind of got brought up, will you talk about Murray Citizens Facebook and like, are there guidelines that
I'm aware there's a Murray
We
Citizens
need-
Facebook page.
I think we're all aware of?
Yeah. What do you want?
I mean, I guess are there guidelines like we should not be commenting on it? We should not be like don't join Bullion 8, whatever the address is. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Instagram, right?
Everything Instagram. No, it's
what are the
it's one where it's-
parameters?
I'd love there to be a hard and fast rule. I could say, no, do not join any Facebook page that's talking about issues in the city, but I really can't. You're all citizens, probably interested in knowing what's going on certain pages or areas of the city. And we would just recommend being careful about commenting,
Especially on future projects.
especially on a foreseeable project that could come, or an area that could be coming up for a rezone or whatnot. So it's a gray area. I said I'd love to say, oh, state law says you can't, but it doesn't. It's gray.
So I can keep putting likes on anytime someone puts a Planet Citizen article on, and I can agree with it and say yes.
Right. But if Ned puts that article up and you hit, I don't know, then it's starting to
Okay.
get.
So
He shares it
correct
with
me
the
if
whole
I'm wrong, Brian, but if they wanted to, if the commission felt strongly about one way or another, they could amend their bylaws to say that they don't want that the commission should not write.
Sure.
Should
Yeah, they
not.
could.
Is there language like that in our bylaws currently? Of like,
I don't
No.
believe so.
No.
I believe the bylaws
how old are our bylaws?
mainly on the
Old.
meeting structure and the information, like with the deadlines for it to get to you.
Is
from the
that
public,
something like we should look at? I mean, I just feel like
It's probably a good idea.
It'd save my
The-
likes for something else.
If you want an
so.
agenda, something to discuss in a work meeting and
Mhm.
discuss some of those issues, the bylaws, that would be an appropriate thing.
Yeah, that could be a big discussion because that
Yeah.
could be. I mean, I've looked at this site and read everything, but I've never ever commented. Never even liked. Just read.
Me neither, because I've been
Is that
too afraid.
are we
Yeah,
gonna
I
say
know.
that's negative.
Per-
like,
too?
I can't
don't know.
even.
Personally, on Midvale does have it in our bylaws
We
that
do.
we're not
Seems
supposed
like
to
some guidance
engage
might
in social media.
be helpful.
We're not supposed to engage in social media. So
Again, what's engage? Me reading.
it means comment or
commenting,
like or share
commenting or liking, because
Like,
they
Snoop all you
You can
want.
read everything.
Yeah.
yeah,
right?
read all you want, but
You can report when they
at least
release
in
their address.
Midvale's, they've asked us not to do that.
So in Midvale's, is it you're not supposed to comment or like any posts regarding Midvale projects?
projects,
That's a good point because there's a lot on there about hairdressers and where to get.
right? Mostly projects, or if it
Land
becomes
use.
something political, land usey, something like that,
But
we're
post-
not
post-
supposed to.
Post hearing that project,
Then it's a different story.
then it's a different story, right?
Yes.
Just don't gloat, probably.
Don't gloat. Yeah. It's a good way to save you getting egg on
Have
your
your-
face is what it is.
Don't make a manifesto about why you voted.
I mean, I think you run I understand that legally we, probably shouldn't be commenting, but at some point you're running the risk of limiting free speech on what a citizen, even if they sit on a commission, can do. I mean, I think we all have seen comments by Donald Trump that, that he obviously, posted whatever he wanted, which I'm not saying that's correct, but
I agree, Jake. I think I was just going to say that is by sitting on this commission, you lose some of your rights as a Murray citizen.
About talking about land use.
Yeah, yes, I think so. I mean, you can, but it's back to a pretty gray area.
Yeah.
It's an issue of public interest, probably. And I think that for 4 years we had a guy that wasn't too interested in advancing that. It seemed like with some of his social media comments, but I would bet. I don't know about you guys, but there's so often those are the types of things that the second you put it out there, you wish you could pull it back. And You know, I don't know. I don't. It's not much of a temptation because I don't have any social media other than LinkedIn, so not that big of a deal for me. But I think that what I've thought, because I have people who will approach me in social situations, and you know what I've always been able to say is, you know, any comments before any comments I'll say in the meeting. And then after the meeting, I'm happy to talk to you and clarify. But that's most people everyone's been pretty cool about that.
Yeah.
I think it's also one of those things that face to face people are there's a lot of keyboard heroes. You know, so face to face they won't say nearly what they'll say on social media.
So
I like that response.
So let me ask a question then, because Jeremy just said something that
keyboard
so
heroes. Sorry.
well, no, it wasn't that. So my neighbor comes up to me and says, "Hey Jake, the Bullion project, blah 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 blah." Right. So is it inappropriate for me to discuss with my neighbor that project at all prior to the meeting?
Well, that was kind of my question too. 4800 South project. I'm always trying to be conscientious of this, but now I think, well, I talked to other residents what I thought about what was going on in the project and what we need downtown while I was standing there. Was that bad?
Let's define
what
good
I-
and bad.
Yes, and again, so much of this, there's differences of opinion amongst attorneys, amongst different commissions, between the way cities do things. Our office tends to be pretty cautious, but it is a reality that people want to talk to the planning commission members when they see them and voice their opinions or ask for yours.
I guess my safety net is it was an open meeting, but the neighbor walking up to you isn't an open meeting.
Right.
Yeah, and what I've obviously never done is I've never said, "Oh yeah, I'm voting no on that" or "yes" on that, right? I've never done that because I make my decision up, you know, after I hear all the public comment. But I've obviously talked to people about issues and listened to what they have to say, and you know, at times I'm probably offering, you know, my opinion on some of that stuff.
Yeah. It's a balance, and I appreciate it, the difficulty of it. I don't know where to say that the line is to be drawn when you do hear from people, you talk to people. I mean, it's some attorneys have no problem with their commissions being out and almost in the same sense as the council, representing the people and talking with them about any of the issues. I think for our purposes, the main thing is that deliberation, if it's not being done in public.
So if we're gathering data, people are sharing with us what they think and opinion, and we're not deliberating. You know, not saying I agree completely or nope, I think you're an idiot. If we're just, oh, well, that's interesting, then and there's just one of us with our neighbors or two of us talking in the parking lot.
Thanks for the information.
Right.
Appreciate it.
You can still agree with them and come to this commission and still vote no. I mean,
Well, like
depending
my
on what
example of
yeah.
Kmart, I don't like the density, and I vote yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
So
I understand. I understand your point. Thanks for talking to me.
Sure. Hopefully that somewhat help. I just don't.
Don't be so friendly. I mean, that's.
I was going to say, I don't have any friends, so it's not an issue for me.
Well, I was going to say, I haven't been invited to a single lunch. What are you guys going to lunch together and calling each other before? Hold on.
I think we need a planning meeting in Hawaii.
So if it's
Saying.
further away, it's okay.
Well, no, it'll be a public meeting. Just be in Hawaii.
We
and the
noticed
city will have to
everyone.
pay for us to get there.
Okay. Well, on that note, that there's a number of other points to open meetings, but I think that always tends to be these gray areas tend to be the areas that are most interesting to talk about. And frankly, those are the ones that I think are most concerning to the commission, because while there are requirements for notice agenda, opportunity for people to participate, and minutes and recordings, you're not necessarily in the details of doing any of that. Staff really takes care of the notices, the agendas, recording the meetings, getting the minutes typed. You are involved, obviously, in having people participate and making sure that you do hear. But
Who gets the misdemeanor when Susan forgets to post the meetings
She never
announcement 24 hours or whatever it is a week before, and then forgets to post the minutes?
That's the vice
After
chair's
the
role,
meeting.
isn't it?
Well, and I ask very seriously because we watch that in our office. We have the same rules, and once in a while I said, "Oh, I forgot to post the meeting minutes." Well, just do it, and ask forgiveness later. I mean,
yeah, we would want to.
you forget sometimes. The only one that really does matter is if there's something in the meeting agenda that's posted, or if there's something missing from it. You can't just bring it into the meeting and vote on it. It's got to be in the agenda that's posted to the state's website.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
Anyway.
You can't have an
Is-
item come up later and vote on it.
I still want to know who gets that misdemeanor. The chair.
You got to prove it's knowing and intentional.
So, can I ask a question about the agenda? I guess not the agenda, but well, I don't know. What is the packet? So, last meeting, we got the packet prior to it being posted publicly. Does that have to coincide technically, or it just has to be posted publicly at some point?
The packet itself, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the packet itself does not have to be posted publicly. We have to make it available publicly. If someone came to the office and asked for it,
They could
we give them a
see
copy.
it.
Okay.
We have just decided as a group, as a city, that we want to make that available to everybody. So we post
Okay.
it on the website.
And I like that transparency.
Yeah,
honestly.
we're just trying to err on that side of saying
I see.
we're not trying to hide anything from anybody.
Yeah.
We
So
get
just
that.
the agenda has to be posted. The packet's we're just providing that as a convenience
Yeah,
for the citizens.
courtesy.
Okay.
We just want to make sure we get that perception that you hear from the public sometimes you guys are trying to do things in secret.
Yes,
We're really
I
not.
know.
We write this stuff because it's what we think. We don't give you opinions we don't really have. Lots of times we would love to, you don't know how many times I've wanted to, on a project, we've got an application, we're writing the report, and I think I want to just poll everybody.
This would be
I want to
such
call
a
you all
great
individually and say,
project
what
for
would you
this.
think if I said to do this, and get an idea of how much support there is for something? But we roll the dice, take our chances, and see what we'll get when we get in front of you, because that's the gig. So
I will say when I worked for Salt Lake City, when we would do Board of Adjustment meetings, I would be finishing my packets 10 minutes before the meeting was to go in. The citizens had no opportunity to review anything other than the agenda and then to sit in on the meeting.
And I'll say also the Murray City Planning Commission packets anyway is fairly new. That just started back
putting it on the website.
late 2018,
Oh.
early 2019.
For
So
that, it was just you had to come to the city and ask for it.
I see.
That's a good practice.
Yeah, I like it.
So, sorry, I'm back to wanting to solicit get people's opinion on things. So, do we ask the chair to put in an agenda item, or how do we do that?
Technically, yeah, it would be asking the chair and she
Madam
would get
Chair, I would
Yeah.
request.
Staff, when we have an opportunity.
I'd request a conversation
Can we vote on this?
amongst the commission on the density for the village the village
Right now?
no mixed use. Sorry, it was the village mixed use.
Okay. Staff is aware that when we have the opportunity to discuss that, we will.
Can I ask a question about that? So let's say we get together, we talk about the VMU or whatever it's called. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, you got it.
VMU. Okay. And we all decide we love it or hate it or whatever we decide.
Doesn't matter.
Well, you can
Doesn't
decide
matter?
whatever you want. The ordinance is written,
Exactly, that's what I'm
right?
saying.
Yeah.
So
But then we could-
then could we say, hey, we want to what?
Redress the ordinance. Yeah.
And
We could- Have a motion for
Sue the
staff to
text
bring it to
together.
city council to
Then,
discuss.
yeah, then at the end of that meeting, you would say, well, maybe we want to direct staff to go back and bring something to us as a formal text amendment, and we would do
With
that.
these specific changes, right?
The commission, though, itself cannot propose a change.
We could propose a change. We can't.
You could, but you got a staff
And we
to
have
do
to
it
have
for you.
staff
So you
just
just
to
make,
write it up.
Yeah,
make us
I'm
do
not
it.
writing the ordinance.
Yeah. You don't have to do that. We have to do that for you.
Okay.
You're not getting paid to do that. You make us do that. We'll
We
bring
are
it
getting
back to you.
paid.
Not that.
Not enough to do that.
Wait, you guys aren't getting the big check I got?
Did you earn that?
Oh,
last
you're the
meeting?
one who got all the $15,000.
It's $40 just for the public's knowledge. $40.
Travis is sweating now. Wait, they're going to think we're going
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Someone.
I'd say we earn that $40 about half the time.
You do have to make difficult decisions, and
That's true.
it's admirable that you do make the decisions and with the public right here, and all the differing opinions that there are in the public. So appreciate that. And if you have any other questions about open and public meetings,
I do have a
question.
question.
My email and phone number. So
Can I just ask another question? I
Comes
know we
up.
need to move on,
Mhm.
but if we have a request, someone comes to the city and says, hey, I want to get all the public records regarding the Bullion project, let's say. Is that, I mean, can they make that broad of a request and then the city has to go compile
Yes.
all that together?
right under the open records laws, they could make that request.
So they don't have
We
to
would
specify.
You have a reasonable amount of time to provide it, though, right?
We do. So the default is 10 days, but when there's a vast amount of records, we look at
Can
what
expand
are
it.
we going to have to do to pull whatever they're asking for. There's also a requirement under open records that the request be for
A purpose.
have at least a level of specificity. So
Okay.
you could argue like anything related to the Bullion project. I guess that's narrow enough. And
yeah, I've actually, I mean, when I was in college, I did an internship in Washington D.C. and I actually was it was a long time ago before when we went and got copies of stuff, and I saw a clerk deny somebody, and it was an attorney, and he dropped the open records, he dropped that, and she just said, I'm sorry, but there's no specific cause or what is the
it's like you have to describe the record with reasonable specificity. I
right?
think
Yeah,
the
yeah,
language is.
exactly. And he was asking for what would have amounted. She said it was unreasonable because it would have required like 4 or 5 hours worth of like photocopying back in the day.
Sure.
So sorry, it's unreasonable and it's not specific enough. Come back and I'll do that.
When I was chair once upon a time, there was a grandma request that came through, and I had to like provide access to emails that I had as the chair with staff about the particular project.
I was going to ask you because, just recently some things have happened about emails, right? In Salt Lake County or
So you should retain our
was that?
emails. I deleted all.
There's a school district that had some issues
the
with
school
it.
district.
School district that had, and that is something to be cognizant of as well as these meetings, but written communications, documents that are produced. So obviously we've talked about the packets being public records, and any member of the public that wants to come and get that can, and we would give that to them before the meeting, even before we were posting them. But when there is either a lawsuit or an issue that may involve written communications or emails, we sometimes have had to deal with that with people, even with personal phones, personal emails, that if they're discussing an issue that's city related, that's in controversy, then that is covered by grandma, even if it's not on a murray.utah.gov email address. So it doesn't happen too often where members of boards have that, but it happens.
You're saying emails between commissioners about specific projects could then later,
Right.
if there was, because I think that's what happened in that one. People made a formal complaint and filed a lawsuit, and so then they went back and got their emails.
I don't remember the specifics of that case,
I
but
don't remember which.
I think that's one way they come out. Emails with staff obviously would be subject to grandma on both ends, but definitely because staff's involved. So it's just a reminder that when you are communicating, make it professional, and just remember that it's something that someone very likely could have access to.
Yeah, that's what this says. Don't write it down if you don't need to. Email is not a private conversation. It's a transcript.
And we've had that with lawsuits. We've had to go through stacks and stacks of printed out emails to see what's
So
to be provided. And
say this also. So this is more of when you write an email, even if you write it to commissioner or the staff, you better write it professionally. You know, here it says don't exaggerate. Just know that whatever you say on your phone or what you write on paper or what you write in a text is available forever.
It doesn't convey tone.
Can we get you to do like a assemblies for junior high school and high school kids?
This is
They get the-
professional. There's plenty of
They get those
garbage
assemblies.
that come from
That's true.
a lot of professionals. And it's, I don't know if they've ever been told about where their emails go. Their emails don't go away. They are there forever, and they're subject to any kind of grammar. And it's embarrassing to a lot of people when it happens, because it'll happen.
Once you send it, you have to assume it's forwarded.
That's right.
You just have to.
For the rest of the world. And your private conversation, not so private anymore.
Not at all. No, it's not. I mean, not at all private.
And I say that because it's all gray. I mean, there are lots of gray areas, but just be cautious, because when you press the button, it's gone. And if you regret it, then it's your fault.
Jeremy's point, I think our generation, the last generation, realized that the younger kids don't. Everything they do is in type and in phone.
That's true.
I think it's a great. And this is like an aside. I mean, I what I found is I typically I write an email, then I actually will read it to myself out loud. It helps with a lot of a lot of grammar, and then think about it. Like if it's at all controversial, just go let it sit.
Save it in drafts and walk away.
Exactly.
That's a great
And actually, what I also do is I don't put the address in until I'm ready to. I'm really sure.
So the way I do that, I put my address in it
yeah.
until you're ready to push the send to the world.
Yeah.
There's been many times I've written an email and I've just clicked delete. I'm done.
Sometimes it helps
Even
with
if it's
writing.
really long, I'm like, delete.
But it makes you feel better, right? Like it does make you feel better. You get it out.
Great.
right. Well, thank you.
See, these
Yeah.
people are
Thank
cool. I
you,
want to hang
Brian.
out with them, but I can't because we're on the planning commission.
Can it's on
Yeah.
it's a public
Social
meeting.
We just
setting.
can't talk about.
Don't
Can
talk
we
about that.
establish a bat signal with you, Bryant?
What,
Like
when you
if,
need help?
if you see us getting in trouble, like you can just give us a little.
Time out.
Because occasionally I see a little wince.
the panic in
Occasionally,
your
but
eyes.
I really haven't seen anything that's too,
I think it would be good though if
Well, we could always ask him. I
can't
mean,
we, as a commission,
Yeah.
couldn't we say, look, if legal has
Yeah.
a comment, we'd be glad to have you raise your hand and we could call you up.
But we've
I
called
feel-
him up before.
Yeah, we've called him up
Yeah,
before.
we have. For
But
sure.
I also like the bat signal because when legal has a comment, their comment is on record and now legally
Yeah.
documented too. So
Right.
maybe just do that.
Yeah.
There's a lot, but I can't say it.
Bryant has the world's best and most interesting ties. So to give him the signal, just pretend you're straightening your tie. If you're wearing one, Joe, if you're not, just pretend you got
Hey,
one.
you know what?
don't
Right,
want to
just do
institute
that.
something with
Just
secret
do
signs
this
because that
Just do
again,
this.
That's
what do I
right.
have to open in public
Right.
meeting?
I really think we do.
That means there's a lot more than what's coming out of your mouth, right? There's a lot more.
I just know when I talked to GL about this, he said, there's a lot of times we have something we want to say, but we're not going to unless,
Unless you
call us
specifically
up.
call him up, right?
But if it's something important, I think, at least for me, I'd rather have you just come up and tell us, hey, you guys are screwing this
I
up
think-
or something.
I think part of it's the role of the chair. I mean, anytime it sounds like it's not right, or it sounds like we're treading on some territory maybe we need to be careful with, it's real easy as chair to say, hey,
Yeah.
Brian, why don't you come give us an opinion on that? And then he can come up and say what he needs to say. And then
Seems like everything's on you. I'm sorry.
And we did that a couple meetings ago, we're like, okay, Brian, help us sort this out.
But
Just wait, Jeremy. January's coming up, and we're electing new chairs.
Can,
I thought the vice chair just automatically moved into it.
Nope.
Nope.
no, but
They're
it's
new
usually-
every year.
It's usually the newest board member.
Nice.
after a year,
Yeah,
after-
Jeremy's
That's
going to be
Jake,
the new
actually.
Throw you
chair.
in.
That's Jake. That's
Jeremy.
Jake. No, it's Jake then.
could you serve, can you serve consecutively or look, it
Because
has
she
to be
really
somebody
wants
else?
to. So let's just do it. It's been working well.
Oh, yeah.
I would have to look at the ordinance. I don't recall.
And you did a great job, Maren.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Especially with all like the other remote stuff and Zoom
Yeah,
calls.
that was
and
tough.
Like that's not fun.
That was tricky for
Yeah.
sure.
The part that I particularly like is that you were at most of the meetings, so the vice chair didn't have to chair very many.
Speaking of which, Vice Chair, next meeting I will not be at. Okay. Did you want to do your training, Jared? Or do you want
No,
to save it?
I will hold. That was
Okay.
a great. That was
Yeah.
a great discussion.
Yeah.
And I'll hold my general plan structure and application discussion for another training another time.
Yeah.
We'll tack it on to the end of the next short meeting so we get a couple hours in for the year like we should.
Great.
Can I ask a question before we finish?
Absolutely.
One of the questions that I talked to GL a little bit about this, but one of the things we often do as a commission is we have these people come before us and we tack on these requirements. And we've often said, and I've heard it said, this is the only time we can do this. And I just want to talk about that because I believe, and again, that's why I'm asking the question, if a property is not in compliance with code, the city has a method to make that property owner comply with the code as long as they're not grandfathered in because they built their property prior.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, so code
But our
enforcement.
current process is someone has to complain and then code enforcement.
I
does that
agree.
check.
I agree. The current process is someone has to complain about it, but I just wanted to make sure I understood that properly because this is not the only time we have to go and enforce a code.
But they're reluctant to act.
It's not the only time, but it's a
I agree.
convenient
No, I
way
agree.
of
I just
enforcing
know
it.
it's been said multiple times that this is our only time to get them to put sprinklers in, at the parking lot where that's not true. It is a good time. Maybe we could enforce it easily.
It's the usual time, maybe. Is
Yeah.
A better way to say it.
Yeah, so I wanted to specifically, so we'll talk about this property right here.
Can I scowl?
You can.
Okay, I'm scowling.
So, for example, because it was
Hey,
brought
can I
up.
just I can I just like actually make a complaint right now?
No. You can go on the website, and there's a little link at the bottom.
There's a
that says report
there's
a
an
concern.
anonymous
Report a concern.
to report a
citizen
concern.
Okay, so for example, I believe Jared had this item where we required this landscaping. I don't have a laser pointer on Google Maps, so for this example, where this would be the only time that we could get landscaping in that area
Sure.
because they have existed and currently exist, and a new permitted use could come in here and we still wouldn't require them to bring up to code for that landscaping or the sidewalk improvements or anything like that if it was a permitted use. Being that it's a conditional use, we can condition it to come up to code and do that. So as a permitted use, we can't really institute those kind of things because they're allowed to go
But if they have,
But even if they're in violation of the ordinance anywhere in the city,
Right, because
somebody could
technically this would
report
be-
them.
This would technically be a non-conforming non-conforming site because, I mean, I can't say for certain, but obviously it existed prior to us requiring the landscaping ordinance or having the landscaping ordinance put into place. So you could make that argument anyway.
So what you're saying is even if somebody made a complaint, we
Right.
would just send out our enforcement officer and they would say, well, I can't enforce it because they're grandfathered.
Correct.
So, but just so I'm clear, but if they were required to have landscaping and a sidewalk there, and they went and ripped out the sidewalk and the landscaping, then we can go
Then
and
we could do
say
it.
you need to put back the landscaping.
So
and
if
the
this
sidewalk.
if this car parts dealer ripped out their sidewalk there and put parking,
right,
we would be able to
because
tell
they
them.
were required to put that in
Right.
when they built this property.
And leave that one up for a second because that was a permitted use. Auto parts. This is CD zoning. You're out of the MCCD now. That's the advanced auto parts, right?
Yeah.
They came in for a site plan review with us. It didn't come to the planning commission. It didn't require a planning commission review, but we still got to require those things, even though it was just staff, because it was a site plan review. It was a significant enough change. There was no building there. It was a new building. We can get the stuff then. We didn't have to say, well, the shack that was there before selling chicken gizzards or whatever it was didn't have sidewalk. So you still don't have to have sidewalk on your new building. We get it then. Yeah. So it's not, technically it's not the only time. It's typically when we're able to do it the best. Yeah.
But can I applaud you here on this particular project for something? And that's that you went ahead and applied a lot of the MCCD standards as far as sidewalk width here on this project when you weren't required to do so. And you got the landowner to do that because it is a gateway right into fire clay. Right. And so they saw an opportunity to put additional conditions on someone or make requests of them and got them to do it. And so that's one that you guys need to be applauded for.
They were willing to do it. I can't remember the specifics, but it was better for them too. So it worked out.
Is it really common that we have, I mean, I know we have a lot of people out of compliance, but how many of them are grandfathered and, they're,
I wish I had a
I
number
mean,
for you. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no, it's
There's
just,
tons
yeah.
that are out of compliance.
but how many would be able, my understanding is our chance to bring them up to code for being out of compliance is when they're changing
uses or
a use or something like that, because otherwise they're kind of allowed to be in their old ordinance.
Yeah, they get to continue under that non-conforming status, whatever
That's the
aspect
word
is
I was looking
non-conforming,
for.
unless the change they're asking for, whether it's coming to you or just coming to us, the change they're asking for is significant enough to need site plan review by us or by you or a conditional use from you. Then we get to ask for all those non-conforming things to be brought up to code. Those are the times we get to do it.
So,
But otherwise they can
we
exist.
get to ask for them, or
compliance.
they are required to do them.
We get to ask for them.
So
we make them do
So
it.
if someone comes and redevelops a property, they don't have to comply with the current.
They got to comply with code. We wouldn't
Okay.
approve it without it. And there are
So,
times.
so they have to comply. We don't
Those are
just
different
get to do
situations.
it.
No,
I mean, I
our
know-
code
Those are two
says that
different
within reason
situations.
we bring up to standards. We have some flexibility within that,
Okay.
depending. And like as the division manager, I have some latitude to decide when you have to have a site plan review or not. I can exempt somebody who's not really making a significant change from that site plan requirement, or I can bring it on. The division can decide we're going to do it, no matter how small the change is. It depends. We have some standards to review, but there's those boxes to check, but there is that element of judgment about whether we're checking them or not.
Sure.
And so there's that.
Can I ask a random question? And this is an appeals question. So we made a decision, property very close to there, where we said even though they didn't meet the $5,000 criteria, they should put in a sidewalk there.
Yeah.
And they appealed that decision, went to the hearing officer, and the hearing officer overturned that decision.
Yes.
Do I have standing
Appeal?
if I appealed the hearing officer's decision? I know that's a weird question, and I have no intention of doing it, but technically, do I have standing because I was involved in it, or do I not because I wasn't the affected entity?
That's a great question. You're definitely aggrieved.
I am aggrieved.
He was aggrieved at the time too.
Have the aggrieved box checked. I'm not sure about the rest of it.
If we're
not on the commission.
No, on the commission.
She was.
On the commission.
Yeah. Who I think made that additional.
I may have made that suggestion and disagreed with Mr. Harland. I respect his
Oh,
opinion,
was
but disagree
Jim.
with him.
I would have to review the ordinance a little bit closer. I don't
Hmm.
recall off the top of my head. Seems like an aggrieved party, the applicant, or the city could appeal, but
He's not.
But I'm
not the city at that
he's,
point.
He's
Right.
not. He's not.
Right.
He's not a principal though.
right. So I would have to look. I don't know. Right off the top of my head.
I'll take 2,000 words.
Get back to him.
Just kidding. If you ever have spare time to think about it, I'd love an answer. I don't know what I have no desire to be involved, but
He just really wanted that sidewalk.
funnier things have happened, I'm sure, in lawsuits. So
Okay, any further business?
I don't think so. Zach, anything that, I don't believe so. No.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn with the stated time?
motion to adjourn at 7:58 p.m.
I'll second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, Bryant. That was great training.